So some crazy things are happening in the world of online politics that I wanted to talk to you guys about. One of them is that Hasan Piker got a day-long suspension on Twitch. We'll discuss why in a second. And Ken Klippenstein was visited by the FBI. So let's start here with Hasan. The Independent says, Hasan Piker suspended from Twitch after discussing alleged manifesto behind Israeli embassy staff shooting. Left-wing streamer was suspended for improper handling of terrorist propaganda, the platform said. Hasan Piker, a popular left-wing political streamer, has been suspended from the live streaming platform Twitch for the improper handling of terrorist propaganda. 24-hour suspension notice from the platform to the 33-year-old streamer followed his remarks regarding the shooting deaths of 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday evening. While the notice didn't point to specific comments made by Piker, inappropriate behavior could include showing a violent extremist manifesto on stream while denouncing it and speaking out against terrorist organizations while displaying a recruitment video, according to Twitch. Hasan has 2.8 million followers on the platform. Quote, I covered the motives of the Israeli embassy staff shooter. Twitch terms of service dictates a suspension for even critical examination of the manifesto. Referring to the written comments allegedly made by Elias Rodriguez, the suspected shooter, quote, I believe this is a bad policy for news and press freedom. I'll take the suspension, but hope Twitch changes this policy in the future. Rodriguez has been charged with federal and local murder offenses in connection with the deaths of Yaron Leshinsky, 30 years old, and Sarah Milgram, 26. The couple left an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum and were gunned down. Leshinsky was hoping to propose to Milgram during an upcoming trip to Israel. During a live stream after the murders, Piker said, quote, I'm not saying it is a false flag incident at all. I'm not saying that. I think this is just one dude who is genuine in his actions and maybe a little brain broken. A flood of social media users denounced Piker's comments. In one X post, a user wrote, you called it a false flag, you hate the Jewish people, and you are anti-Semitic. Ironically enough, I was showing his motive to dispel the rumors of a false flag, which is the reason for this suspension, but I don't think you're capable of critical thought, Piker wrote in response. The Independent emailed Twitch for comment. Earlier this month, Piker said he was grilled by U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Officials spent 2 hours questioning him about his views on Donald Trump and the war in Gaza, prompting concern from civil liberties advocates. Now, by the way, the head of the ADL went on, I believe it was CNN, after this shooting, and basically said, like, oh, you had the New York Times running this puff piece on this terrorist supporter, Hasan Piker. Something to that effect. And I think that the fact that he was in the crosshairs of the ADL because of his open support for Palestinians, I think that may have weighed into this. Because, by the way, it's a total bullshit here from Twitch because, and there was this picture floating around on social media as well of the number of times Hasan reacted to a mass shooting or a terror attack where the person had a manifesto, and virtually every time he shows the manifesto and breaks it down critically. He did it with like 4 or 5 different other mass shooting manifestos. It's not like a new thing. And by the way, he also condemned the act and tried to discuss it in as objective a way as possible and try to break down the events in as objective a way as possible. I mean, basically doing this goes beyond just political pundit, political commentator stuff. He actually handled the situation more like a journalist, where he went through the actual manifesto. Like me and Crystal just like talked about it. We just talked about the shooting. I didn't like pull up the manifesto, go through it line by line, and he took the time to pull up the manifesto as he's done with other shootings and gone through it line for line, condemned it, and tried to break it down. So this is much ado about nothing. But my conspiracy is that I think the fact that the head of the ADL was targeting him on CNN, that may have added some degree of pressure to the higher-ups at Twitch, where they felt like, we just need the thinnest excuse, thinnest veneer possible in order to suspend Hasan. Now, it was just for a day, which I'm happy it was just a day. But even that is like, really, do you want to lay the precedent of every time there's a mass shooting or a terror attack, you're not allowed to talk about the manifestos, you're not allowed to look into the motive, you're not allowed to have open conversations on these platforms? The whole idea of these platforms originally was that you can have open, frank discussions that maybe they don't have in mainstream news. So he didn't do anything wrong here, but now we're talking about, like they pointed out in the article, he was questioned by ICE when he returned from a trip overseas where they started inquiring about his politics, inquiring about his thoughts on Donald Trump, inquiring about his coverage of Gaza and his interview with the people that they say is a Houthi and others say is definitely not a Houthi, the Timothée Chalamet guy, if you guys remember, who that guy was. He was like this young guy who kind of looked like Timothée Chalamet, but some people said he was a Houthi, some people didn't, but Hasan interviewed the guy. And so, like, they're looking at somebody who's critical of the United States of America, critical of this regime, and they put him through hell at the airport, which I've been saying since then, he should be thanking his lucky stars. They didn't just fucking disappear him, because as you all know, they're black-bagging Palestinian supporters all across this country, right? And then now we get this as well. Where he's suspended for, like, the most basic shit. Me and Crystal talked about the same shooting. And by the way, he sounds like he completely came out and definitively said he doesn't think this is a false flag attack. One of the things me and Crystal talked about is I kind of thought maybe it is. Now, I don't know. I don't have any evidence for that. We're just speculating. We're just having a conversation. But there is a long documented track record of Israel doing these sorts of things. It's not like it's totally unheard of and it would be something that there's no precedent for. There's a massive precedent for it. It's happened multiple times that Israel's done it. Now, does that mean in this case for sure it is? No. I don't know the reality. But to say you're not allowed to talk about it, like we went further than he did. And somehow, I guess Twitch is a lot more strict with their terms than YouTube is. That's my guess, is that that they have stricter rules over at Twitch. But again, either way, it was selectively enforced because when Hasan talked about other mass shootings and other terrorist attacks and put the manifestos up and critically analyzed them, there was never a problem before. And this time there was a problem. And again, I think part of that is he's in the crosshairs of the ADL. I really think that that's part of the problem here. So now let's talk about Klippenstein. So Ken Klippenstein was visited by the FBI. He says, for the second time in a year, the FBI came to my home yesterday after I published the so-called manifesto of the man charged with killing 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington. By the way, that's the connecting tissue here too. Hasan gets suspended for talking about this manifesto, and Ken Klippenstein got visited by the FBI for publishing this manifesto. The visit didn't surprise me, but its tone did. It was aggressive and threatening. Quote, "You're not in trouble," the 2 special agents kept saying, good cop style, to get me to answer the questions they would later ask. Where had I gotten the manifesto? Had I had pre-knowledge of the attack? Did I receive instructions about how to disseminate the statement? Not a single mainstream media outlet has published the text because, as they claim, the FBI hasn't confirmed its authenticity. But the real reason is simple. The media just doesn't want to publish it, and the FBI doesn't want the media to think it can. Quote, "You're not in trouble," they said a few more times. "I know," I replied, wondering what else I could say to get them to go away. Shutting the door in their faces did not seem wise. Maybe I could demonstrate that I know enough about the FBI that their elicitation techniques wouldn't work, I thought. "You guys from the satellite office in Middleton?" I asked them, alluding to one of their many but little-known resident agencies distinct from the field offices, Wisconsin's being in Milwaukee. "Have you been there?" the man asked, looking surprised. "No, that's where the last visit came from," I explained, smiling. "The Bureau paid me a visit last year about my publication of the J.D. Vance dossier." I remember that. This also seemed to throw them off. They were sent by Washington, they said, perhaps trying to distance themselves from the intrusion. Then came the big ask. "We want to know about the timeline, how you knew about the manifesto before anyone else, and if you were in touch with the shooter beforehand." I once again referred them to my attorney, and finally they left. But that wasn't the last I'd hear from them. They left my lawyer, Beth Burden, a career public defender who goes toe-to-toe with cops every day for her job, a voicemail, which I've enclosed below.
Hi, Beth. My name is Ellen Thurmer. I'm a special agent with the FBI Milwaukee Division out of the Madison RA. I'm calling in regards to your client, Ken Klippenstein. I was just over at Mr. Klippenstein's residence earlier today, following up on some questions regarding the manifesto that he published on his blog yesterday. Mr. Klippenstein recommended that we give you a call or email in order to consult with you prior to an interview or in conjunction with you. He was not comfortable speaking to us without your guidance. Again, my name is Ellen Thurmer. I'm with FBI Milwaukee, the Madison RA. I can be reached here at my cell phone. I'll also try to follow up with you via email. Thank you. Bye.
So it continues. As Beth explained to me, a special agent, Ellen P. Thurmer, one of the two that visited me, told her that they wanted to know why I'd published the manifesto, among other questions. Beth called them back after some back and forth. The special agent offered to send their questions in an email, trying to convince me to submit to an interview as part of their investigation. The purpose of this interview is to glean as much information regarding the manifesto and how it came into Mr. Klippenstein's possession as possible. We would appreciate it if this list of questions was kept between you and your client, the email read. So much for that. These are the 11 questions from the email I've reproduced below. When did he first encounter the manifesto? How did he first encounter the manifesto? Did he receive any instruction from the source of the manifesto about how to disseminate it? Does the system or platform from which he received the manifesto capture metadata concerning the transfer of the manifesto? Did he make any edits or changes to the manifesto? Was this his first and only interaction with whomever submitted the manifesto? Has anyone else submitted any other documentation regarding this incident? Did his receipt of the manifesto predate the attack? Where else, if anywhere, did he disseminate the manifesto? Does he have any knowledge of where else the manifesto was published or shared? Why does he think he was the one who received the manifesto? Other than the questions implying the FBI is entertaining an outlandish theory that I conspire with the shooter, the others seem pretty straightforward and routine. But there's a Trump administration dimension to all of this. The administration has many times publicly warned about shadowy, unseen forces that it believes are bankrolling everything from Tesla vandalism to the college protests. That tone from the top, labeling seemingly everything terrorism, tells personnel that the gloves are off and more aggressive work in the field is now permissible. Get ready to hear that I'm impeding the investigation, giving people a roadmap to the sources and methods that are used to catch terrorists, or whatever reason the National Security State Soundboard offers up for why the public isn't allowed to know things. Let's see if this gets me another visit. So here's the reality of the situation, which everybody should be clear about. The reason Ken Klippenstein released this is because he's a journalist. The reason why every media outlet in America should release it is because they're supposed to be journalists. They're supposed to be reporters. They're supposed to be in the news and information business, right? My guess is the reason he was able to get his hands on it is because he has a track record of releasing stuff like this, because that's his fucking job. There's a reason why his Substack is incredibly popular. There's a reason why a lot of people have subscribed to his Substack, because they know he's going to do what used to be, this is old school basic ass journalism. We have information, it's for the public good, we're going to release it. Now, and this is his deeper point, you have all these mainstream media outlets, they don't want to release it, they wouldn't release it because they have a chummy relationship with the FBI, and they know that the FBI doesn't want them to release it, so they didn't. So really, it's like the mainstream media outlets are working for the intelligence agencies, they're working for the deep state, they're working for powerful forces. Because if they're willing to pull their punches and not do their job to appease the FBI, why wouldn't they do it with the CIA? Why wouldn't they do it with the executive branch? Why wouldn't they do it with the legislative branch? Why wouldn't they do it for billionaires and moneyed interests who oftentimes fund their papers and fund their TV stations? Why wouldn't they do it for multinational corporations who give them advertiser dollars? Oftentimes, mainstream media is simply just controlled by powerful interests, and they shape the world in a way to make you not look at what's actually going on, right? And so I'm sure either the guy directly sent it to Ken, right? Or he somehow got it from somebody who knew the guy or whatever the fuck. But the implication that maybe he was involved, he's a fucking journalist. He's got a track record of releasing stuff like this whenever he can get his fucking hands on the J.D. Vance dossier, right? Like, this is what he does. But his point about the Trump regime stands that they're being more aggressive. They're being more aggressive. And I don't think that's going to stop. And that's why you see Hasan Piker get questioned at the airport over his politics. That's why you see the second FBI visit for Ken Klippenstein. They really do want journalism to be a crime. They really do. And this is where it leads us. By the way, I got one more thing for you here. So this is a comedian. I forget her fucking name. I've seen her before, but I'm blanking on what her name is. But she actually makes an interesting and good point here. Let's watch.
I had a friend, Jenna Friedman, who just posted on Instagram, comedian, that she was performing in Vancouver, and when she came back to America, in customs asked, "What do you do?" She said she's a comedian. They said, do you talk about politics in your set, and do you make fun of the president? And she said she answered truthfully, which I think is yes for her. And they didn't take her, they let her go, but they asked.
Right.
They asked. And that just is, I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but I definitely don't think that I am immune to having some kind of backlash, or that I couldn't be put on some kind of list because of some story I reposted that was, I mean, you look at other places that have dictators.
So now you have comedians being aggressively questioned when they come in the country about their politics, political commentators and pundits, same thing, journalists being visited by the FBI, and that's to say nothing about the multiple lawsuits the Trump regime has against media outlets because they're trying to shake them down and scare them into not critically reporting on Donald Trump. They also know that Trump holds the keys to their various mergers, so you got the CEOs and the owners of the company saying, hey, lay off Trump, it's not good for business, right? You have a chilling effect all across the board. Never mind the pro-Palestine activists who are being black-bagged, Mahmoud Khalil locked up indefinitely because he dared to protest Israel, Rumeysa Ozturk, who was locked up for a long time for daring to protest Israel, others as well. It's a chilling effect. They don't want free speech. They don't want honesty and openness and a free flow of information. They want to control all of it. So it's a terrifying time, and I expect this sort of stuff to only get worse the deeper we get in this regime. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.